What if I told you we're missing an entire chapter of human history? Imagine a world where the ruins of great cities weren't built in the last few centuries, but inherited from a civilization far older and far more advanced than we've been taught. A civilization whose fingerprints can still be seen in towering cathedrals, massive star-shaped forts, and architectural wonders so precise and so vast, they defy the limits of the time they're credited to. But here's the mystery. This civilization is nowhere in our textbooks. Its name has been erased, its legacy buried, and its story reduced to a handful of strange maps and scattered anomalies. Some call it a myth. Others believe it was deliberately hidden. As we peel back the layers of history, the evidence becomes impossible to ignore. Skeletons of giants that vanish after discovery. Maps that show an empire called Tartaria stretching across continents. Entire cities half buried under mud, as if swallowed by the earth, and the suspicion of a global reset that rewrote history itself. So tonight, we step into the shadows of a forgotten world. A world that may have once ruled the earth, only to be wiped from memory. Let's dig into the mystery of Tartaria. Across the world, in city after city, the same impossible structures appear. Enormous cathedrals with stonework so precise it seems almost carved by machines, not hand tools. Spires stretching like antennae into the sky, domes that seem designed to channel energy, and copper towers that once shone like beacons of light. From above, star-shaped forts reveal themselves, massive geometric patterns etched into the land with mathematical perfection. Their walls, angled to deflect, layered to last, give the impression of a civilization that thought not just on the ground, but from the sky. Yet we are told these were designed centuries before flight was even possible. Look closer and the mystery deepens. On the surfaces of some ruins lie scorch marks, as if blasted by an intense heat no ordinary fire could produce. Blocks of stone appear warped and melted, frozen in the moment of destruction, as though something cataclysmic swept through. And then there are the buried secrets beneath our feet. Streets where windows open directly into soil, buildings where the so-called first floor is actually the second or even the third. Entrances swallowed by the ground, hidden stairways leading down to levels long forgotten. The official story says these marvels were constructed in the 1800s by ordinary builders with ordinary tools. But standing before them, it feels less like construction and more like excavation. As though the people of that era didn't build them at all, but simply uncovered what was already there, remnants of something far older and far greater than we've been allowed to know. When we turn to the earliest photographs from the late 1800s and early 1900s, a strange pattern emerges. Towering cathedrals, massive government halls, grand libraries, and endless rows of ornate stonework, all already standing in full glory. Entire cities that look finished, complete, almost too perfect. And yet, the streets are empty. No bustling crowds, no signs of a city coming to life. Instead, we see men with shovels, not building but digging, clearing dirt from around buried doors, excavating windows that sit below ground level, carving out pathways to structures that appear to have been swallowed by time. It feels less like construction and more like reclamation, as if these workers weren't architects of a new world, but custodians of an old one. Settlers moving into the ruins of a civilization they didn't fully understand, inheriting its grandeur without ever knowing its origins. Some researchers call this the hand-me-down city theory, the idea that many of the world's great cities weren't truly built by the people credited. Instead, they were adopted, claimed, rebranded as the triumphs of modern progress, when in truth, they may have been the last surviving fragments of Tartaria. If this is true, then our history books aren't just incomplete, they may be hiding a far more ancient world, one we've only just begun to uncover. If Tartaria was nothing more than a myth, then why does it appear so clearly on our oldest maps? From the 1500s through the 1700s, cartographers across Europe and Asia marked vast regions under a single name, Tartaria. Not vague or empty space, but detailed territories filled with borders, rivers, towns, and trade routes. Some maps even divided into distinct regions: Chinese Tartary, Independent Tartary, Great Tartary. An empire so large it stretched from the edges of Europe to the Pacific Ocean. And then, almost without explanation, it vanishes. By the early 1800s, the word Tartaria fades from maps altogether, replaced by familiar nations like Russia, Mongolia, or China. As if this empire, once spanning continents, had been quietly erased. Was this simply oversight by historians? A cartographic error corrected over time? Or something more deliberate, an intentional rewriting of history to remove an entire civilization from memory? The sudden disappearance of Tartaria from the world's records raises a disturbing possibility that our understanding of human history isn't just incomplete, it's been edited. Names removed, stories buried, an empire reduced to a ghost. Perhaps the most unsettling clue in the Tartarian mystery is the evidence of what many call the mud floods. All across the world, we find buildings that don't quite make sense. Entire blocks where windows sit buried beneath the earth. Entrances that lead directly into dirt. Streets with a so-called first floor is actually the second or third. Beneath our modern cities lies another hidden level, sealed off and forgotten. Photographs from 1800s show workers shoveling mountains of mud, clearing it away not to build, but to reveal. It looks less like ordinary construction and more like a massive cleanup effort, cities swallowed by a sudden deluge of earth. But where did all this mud come from? Was it a natural disaster, volcanic ash, landslides, earthquakes on a global scale? Or was it something else entirely? Some researchers suggest a worldwide cataclysm, a reset event powerful enough to bury entire civilizations in a single sweep. If true, the mud floods may not just explain why Tartaria vanished, but how history itself was rewritten. New societies rose on top of the old, inheriting cities they didn't build and claiming them as their own. What we call the foundations of modern civilization may, in fact, be the buried remains of a forgotten world. Buried deep in old newspaper archives are reports that defy belief. Farmers, miners, and explorers stumbling upon skeletons not of ordinary men, but towering figures 8, 9, even 10 feet tall. Beside them, oversized weapons and tools, objects so large they could never be wielded by human hands as we know them. These weren't isolated discoveries. Throughout the 1800s and early 1900s, accounts surfaced from North America, Europe, and Asia. Each time, the same story: giant bones unearthed, briefly studied, then quietly disappearing. Museums claimed them, only to lose them. Others were hastily reburied, sealed away before the public could see. If these reports are true, they raise a chilling possibility. Were these giants the rulers of Tartaria? The elite bloodline of a forgotten empire? If so, then erasing their existence wasn't just about hiding bones. It was about erasing legitimacy. Removing any trace of a civilization that once stood apart, rewriting history to fit a narrative where such beings could never exist. And so the giants vanish from record, just like Tartaria itself. When we look closely at the world's great structures, a strange repetition appears. Domes, spires, copper rooftops, perfectly symmetrical layouts, the same design language echoed across continents, cultures, and centuries. Why copper? Not just for beauty, but because copper is one of the best conductors of electricity. At the highest points of many buildings we find antenna-like structures, rising into the sky as though meant to draw in or transmit energy. Cathedrals, state buildings, palaces, even ordinary town halls. Many share the same mysterious features. Was this simply architectural fashion? Or was it something far greater? A global blueprint for harnessing natural energy, perhaps even wireless power? Some researchers believe these structures tapped into electromagnetic fields of the Earth itself, creating free energy long before the modern age of electricity. If that's true, then these buildings aren't just monuments of stone and copper. They're survivors. Living evidence of advanced knowledge passed down through Tartaria, preserved in architecture even as it vanished from our textbooks. As the world marched into the 20th century, another pattern emerged. The Great Wars fought across Europe and beyond, left cities in ruins. But what was truly lost? Not just homes and streets, but irreplaceable architecture. Ornate domes, palaces of impossible grandeur, star forts, and spired towers, all reduced to rubble. And what rose in their place? Concrete, steel, functional, modern blocks with none of the mystery, none of the design features that hint at a deeper knowledge. Whether by chance or by design, the effect was the same. The last visible traces of a forgotten civilization were wiped away under the smoke of what couldn't be erased from memory through maps or museums, was destroyed in fire and bombardment. The wars didn't just reshape borders. They may have rewritten history itself, burying Tartaria one final time. Mainstream historians insist Tartaria is nothing more than myth, a misunderstanding of geography, a relic of old cartography. Yet the anomalies refuse to stay buried. The maps that clearly label Tartaria. The architecture that seems built for purposes we no longer understand. The mud floods that hide entire floors beneath our cities. The reports of giant skeletons that vanish as quickly as they appear. Individually, each might be dismissed. But together, the pattern is too consistent to ignore. Again and again, we find evidence that doesn't fit the official story. Whether Tartaria was a real empire or a symbol of civilizations deliberately erased, it points to one undeniable truth. Our history is not as complete, nor as certain, as we've been taught. If Tartaria was real, what else have we lost to time, to war, to deliberate erasure? And if it wasn't, why do the pieces still fit together so convincingly? The mystery refuses to fade. It lingers in stone, in maps, in buried layers beneath our feet. Perhaps the true purpose of Tartaria is not a simple answer, but the questions it forces us to ask. History isn't finished. It's buried, waiting to be uncovered. If you've enjoyed this journey into the hidden corners of the past, make sure to like this video, share it with others who love forgotten history, and subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries that mainstream history leaves behind.